All right, we're going to move on to video 3E. We're going to talk about what it takes to plot a cabinet or well, I guess draw a cabinet, and then we'll move on to plotting after that. So to start out, when you are about to pick up a drawing, just to recap, last video we talked about the focus of going into your drafting schedule, finding the print that you're about to work on, locating the arc reference, pulling up the takeoff, verifying the scope in the takeoff, and then also reviewing the handoff meeting notes and handoff meeting recording in the meeting notes folder. Once you've gone through that whole research and development phase of the drafting process, then you are able to really get a jump on actually drawing. So let's go back to our list. We're looking at our drafting schedule here, and I've got L1 on my name right here. This is for Legislative Office Building. So I have that folder synced to my computer, and I have those drawings pulled up from our last video in the R&D, research and development. So really we're focusing in on this guy. We're going to draw this one today. So L1, just this wall here. L2 is going to be another drawing, so we're not going to deal with that today. We're just going to focus on this. All right. So before you begin, you want to go ahead and open AutoCAD. And after you've done that, you're going to look in the, we'll go into the job folder, and we're going to go look for the prelim project folder. This is the folder where all of the AutoCAD files will be saved for the entirety of the project. Any drafting files, any templates, any floor plans will all be saved within this folder there. So I've got AutoCAD open here. I'm going to go into my File Explorer, and I'm going to go locate the job folder for Legislative Office Building, 6415, under Drawings and Prelim Project. Okay, so every project should have a drafting template within that folder. So usually it will show up with this maroon sort of burgundy colored icon. You're going to see that, and all you got to do is go ahead and open that up. The template for each job is set up in a way that makes it super easy for the drafting team to begin working on a project without having to do a lot of legwork with filling a lot of things out. So the template, by default here, I am looking at what's called the paper space. We've kind of looked at that previously, but the paper space is the place where all of your drawings are going to sort of come to life. You're going to actually see that all of your finishes for the entire job should be over here on the side. That includes the veneer, solid surface, paint, metal, anything you can think of that would be included as part of our scope is going to be located over here. To the right of that, you will see that there is also a section for job-specific hardware, meaning that if you have a specific pole assigned to that job or a specific trash grommet or anything like that, it's going to be located here. These are also linked as well, which you won't actually see until you go to plot drawing, but as you go through the plotting phase of the job and you print this out into Bluebeam, you'll be able to click on these different finishes or hardwares, and it will take you right to the manufacturer's website for those finishes or hardwares. To the left of all of that, there are the standard on-site finish calls. These are ones that are going to be found in job 1, 2, 3, 4 in the material log. That's all the way at the top. So in the material log, any finishes that are on-site standard finishes are going to be located here. Also, any on-site standard hardwares will be located here as well. And in your template, on the right-hand side, this giant block over here is all of those on-site standard hardwares. So they're organized in a way that makes it a little easier to understand what you're looking at. I know in the material log, it's not organized quite the same. I mean, it is the same labeling, but it doesn't have these headers above all of that to explain what these are. So this does make it a little easier to understand what we're looking at. So we know that this whole group is all hinges, this whole group is all slides, and so on. Now, we have talked about some of these hardwares. We have not talked about all of them yet because some of them don't really apply to cabinets. Others of them do. So the ones that we have talked about are ones that are mostly at the front here on this first column, with a little bit of these ones here as well. Majority of these other items, this column here is mostly locks. There are undermount slides here, which we have kind of briefly discussed. Then you have Velcro, and these are standards and brackets, which we'll talk about later. And then you have standard trash cans, planter liners, which we won't talk about here today, but when you draw a planter, we're going to need these guys and these tape ease profiles, which is something we'll get into later as well. Okay, anyways, on top of all of these, there is what is called the general notes. General notes are on the the right-hand side of your paper space. These are general notes that apply to the drawing, and a lot of these are predefined for you. So as you work on a print, you're able to just copy and paste these right from here into your general notes. So same thing with these two. These are made to copy and paste right into your finish and hardware section of your page notes here. The general notes are more or less to cover our bases when it comes to certain things. Like you'll notice that as we draw a cabinet, we're not going to call out every tiny piece of hardware. Like the hinges typically will not be called out. The slides will typically not be called out. Hinge plates and so on. We'll talk about what is expected there and what is not when we get into actually plotting a cabinet drawing. But for the items that are not called out, there are general notes here that will explain what those hardwares are, so that way they do not have to be pointed to in the drawing itself to actually understand what they are. There's also other general notes too, which I guess we can just kind of breeze through these real quick before we get into actually drawing. So these general notes, most of these, the ones that are up here, are pertaining to cabinets. So we're going to be focused in on these for today. You have your self-close hinges. You have, if you click on, actually these ones don't have that option, but you have these notes that will explain if you're using self-close hinges, that would be hardware 4-120, and you would need hardware 1-0, which is the hinge plate, which is the side that actually mounts to the sidewall of the cabinet, and the hinge is the part that mounts to the actual cabinet door. So these general notes are just to explain that without having to point it out in the drawing. So you could say like, all my hinges are hardware 4 with a hardware 1 plate. Or if you have a different type of cabinet, like we do have an 80A cabinet on our drawing that uses a 170-degree hinge. So we will need to add this note eventually where it says hardware 4-170 on all 80A cabinets with the same hardware 1-0 hinge plate. If you had soft close, you have an option there for that. This note here, this is like we talked about, if you have a cabinet door that is actually adjacent to a wall, you will want to put a hinge restrictor clip on that door in order to keep that door from opening further than 90 degrees and bumping into the drywall. Moving down, we've kind of briefly talked about vanities a little bit, but we'll get more into that as we draw these. So vanity screens, they have two specific hardwares that get attached to them, hardware 9 and 10. That's that blue Meventos HK hinge mechanism and hinge plate. Below that, you have your slides. So these are your standard self-close slides. That's our normal. And then below that, you have your soft close slides, which is hardware 7. Then you have your general note for if you have any adjustable shelves on your cabinets, you will want to put this in there. That is explaining that all the adjustable shelves use hardware 11 shelf pins with the holes spaced 32 millimeters on center, which is an which is an AWI standard. You've kind of not really gotten into that too much, but On-Site Woodwork is an AWI certified company. We also are QCP certified too. So we run under the strict guidelines of a group called the American Woodwork Institute. And what they do is they set the standards for all mill workers across the industry. So that way, all commercial mill workers have to follow the same standards as far as constructability or construction standards of your cabinets and other items. There is a textbook that goes with that. The Loves Park branch has one over by the listing area. I also have one here. This is what it looks like. I have one at my desk here, which I got off of eBay, but it kind of goes through all the different areas of the millwork industry. So very dry read, but really important information in there. So if you ever bored or have some time, or you're just trying to do some research, that book is readily available. We also have a website which you can use as well to access all of that information there. The website's going to be a little bit more up to date. This book is from 2014, so if you're using the book, it's outdated by a little bit. Anyways, back on what we were talking about. So the other two that are slightly below that are for the interior finish of the cabinet. We talked about this a little bit. Most cabinets are either going to be white melamine on the inside or black melamine. That is just a pretty much a plastic laminate almost in a way. It's really durable and is used on the insides of our cabinets. We'll usually use the white melamine for cabinets that have an outside finish that is slightly lighter. If you have a cabinet on the outside with the finish of a darker finish, we usually will use mellow black or black melamine for that. So if an architect does have a melamine called out, you'll want to use what they have called out, but if they do not, we kind of go based on that rule there. Lighter colored laminate cabinets get white melamine, darker colored laminate cabinets get black melamine. Below that, you will see there is a note for scribe countertops to wall typical. This is only going to be used if your countertop is laminate, veneer, or, well, that's really about it. So if your countertop is either laminate or veneer, you can scribe it to the wall. If it's a stone, a solid surface, or quartz, you will not be able to scribe that countertop to the wall. It will have to be caulked to the wall by the install team. Below that, you have a left and right sides of sink cabinets are scribed 1 inch to floor. That is actually referring to the ADA style cabinets. So these types of cabinets here, I pull up that section view again, I'll show you what that means. When it says the left and right sides of the sink cabinets are scribed to the floor, what that means is the left and right sides of the cabinet are going to be sent 1 inch taller than what they need to be. And that allows the install team to be able to shave off a little bit of this if they need to in order to level these cabinets. These cabinets here, because they are open to the floor, are not able to use standard shim, which is why we scribe the sides and the back of these cabinets. So again, that's only applying to cabinets that are open to the floor or sink cabinets like this. Moving on from there, you have trash tops attached with hardware 24. That is that little button fix, the button fix type 2 hardware we talked about in the hardware section of these videos. Sorry, gotta pull it out of the box of hardware that I have here. That's this guy. That is what holds the trash can tops to the drawers. So that's why that note exists there. It's only used when you have a trash pull-out cabinet. And then we won't be jumping into any banquette notes here. Dye-wall notes will not apply to what we're talking about today. Base trim notes will actually apply to what we're doing. So if you have base trim on the front of your cabinet, which typically you will, the front of that cabinet base will be scribed 1 inch to the floor. That's, of course, if the floor is uneven, unlevel, they will use that 1 inch scribe to make the base trim actually match up with the floor while still touching the bottom of the cabinet toe kick. All right. All finished base is to be provided in links, joints determined in field. So what that'll mean is that the base trim will go out to the field in 8 to 10 foot lengths. They'll make these base trim boards, send them on a truck out to the field. The field will take those base trim boards and they'll cut them down to whatever size they need for the area that they're working in. So really that's more of a note to that's more of a note to the shop actually, because that's to let them know that the base trim does not need to be sized exactly to the dimensions of the opening or the dimensions of your cabinets. It's going to be sent just generally longer and they'll cut it down in field. And then this other note here, all finished base is to be on Medex core. So Medex is a material, it's a core material. A lot of times we will be using MDF or particle board for core material when it comes to cabinets, but the base trim is different. It will want to be on Medex core, and the reason why is Medex is a core material that is more water resistant and less likely to harbor bacteria and mold after it gets wet. Because as you imagine, you have base trim sitting on a floor. If anybody spills something or somebody mops the floor around these cabinets, that base trim is going to get a little wet. And so the Medex core is to prevent moisture from absorbing into the wood and causing the wood to start to expand or the wood to start to become moldy over the course of time. All right. Other notes that are going to apply to us here, we have the typical notes, which really isn't that much. It's all walls, floors, and in-wall blocking are by others. That is pretty self-explanatory. We don't do any drywall work. We don't do a lot of flooring. And the in-wall blocking is something that we will kind of touch base on when we get to probably floating counters. You won't really see a lot of that here. Or we won't really have a need for a lot of that here with cabinets. If the GC, let's say the drawings don't have the equipment labeled on them, or they don't provide you with an equipment list for the appliances or the equipment that goes around your cabinets, we'll usually put this out on the drawing if that is not something that we have access to. And that lets the general contractor or the GC know that they should be providing that information to us so we can make sure that our cabinets will fit accordingly around their equipment and their appliances. All right, moving on. These are generic labels that you're going to be using for cabinets as well. These are labels that tell you where the cabinet poles are to be placed on the front of the doors and drawers of the cabinets. These are the locations for the base cabinets. These are the locations for the drawers. And then these here are the locations for the upper cabinets. So with that being said, because we have all three of those on this print, we will need to include all three of these in our general notes later when we get into plotting the drawing. Below the general notes and the finish and hardware list, in the template you will see some other things. So you have your released for production stamp. We don't mess with this at all. This is for the project management team when they are through with marking up their drawing that we give to them. And they have applied all their field dimensions, meaning they've gone out to the field and measured all the walls to make sure the cabinets will fit between the walls. They will send the print either to the listing department for in-house manufacturing, meaning that like our shop will be producing this drawing or what's on the drawing, or they will stamp this and they will send it out to an outsourced manufacturer who has their own listing department in order to produce all of the machining for their cabinet production facility. So Anyways, if you you don't really have to do anything with this. This is all for the project managers. They have a space to put their stamp when they are ready to release the drawing. Below the release for production, there is a area called revisions. This you only fill out if you are working on a set of red lines or you are working on an architectural revision. So if you have submitted a drawing to an architect and they've marked it up, they can return it back to us with markups, and those are called red lines. Again, they will be located in the job folder under drawings and red lines when that does happen. You will also get a notification email letting you know when you do have red lines. So if that is the case, what you're going to do is you would take this text box and you'll copy it down. Using the copy command, you'll just paste it just like this. And as you notice, as I'm using that copy command, what I'm doing here is I'm selecting that text and then I'm hitting enter and I'm selecting this base point here, meaning that there's this little invisible grid in green that won't plot on the paper when you print the drawing. But if I'm doing a red line revision, what I need to do is click this endpoint, copy it down to here, and then what I would typically do is fill this out by erasing what's in here currently. And I'm going to write 01 red lines, today's date, which would be the 27th. And then I have to put my initials at the very end, meaning that I was the person that made these changes to the drawing. Because sometimes you may not be the original author of the drawing, so you want to put your initials there to let everybody know that this is the work that you did. It wasn't, it may or may not have been the original drafter that worked on it. Similar to that, like we talked about red lines, there are occasionally going to be times where an architect will release a new set of drawings, which means that they will call that either a bulletin, an addendum, or sometimes just a revision. When they do that, we'll go through those drawings and compare them to the prints that we currently have drawn. If there are any changes that happened when they were revising their drawings, we'll have to match that on our prints. And it doesn't happen that often, but when it does, what we'll do is we'll label this to say arc rev instead of redline. And that just means that the architect had revised a detail, a drawing that pertained to the drawing that we're working on. And we would fill it out exactly the same way. You would still say this is revision 1, arc rev this time though, and then we'll still put the date of the day that we worked on it and the initials of the drafter that worked on it. Below this, you have 3 checkboxes which will be pre-filled out for you, so you don't have to worry about actually checking these anymore. But what these are is QCP, LEED, and FSC. So these are different programs that the architect can sign up for as they release this on a project. Part of the contract agreement is they have the option to apply these different programs to their job. So QCP is a program, it's called the Quality Certification Program. It is run by AWI and or the American Woodwork Institute. Now what they do is that is a quality certification program. So really what it is it's an audit, or it can lead into an audit. And we will be audited once every 3 years. And I can't remember the last time we got audited. Not that it really matters, because you could be watching this video 10 years from now, or you could be watching it tomorrow. But when we do get audited, though, a representative from AWI is assigned to the job to be in contact with us. What they do is they will monitor the project from start to finish, just like our project management team does. And they will be checking each of the steps in the process, including us in drafting and listing and the shop and the install team, all the way through from start to finish. They'll be monitoring to make sure that everything that we draw is how we built it. Now, generally in today's age, our blocks do a really good job of covering that for us, so we don't have to worry about running into a lot of issues, but there will be times with specialty furniture items that you will need to be really careful about that. But anyways, um, the audit's more or less something that I have to worry about as the drafting supervisor more than anything. Although it is something to at least be aware aware of. It is a program though that the architect can choose to sign up for each job. Um, so the other two programs that are on here are LEED and FSC. So these other two programs, um, they are related to the materials that are being used throughout the project. Both of those would have more to do with ordering than they have to do with engineering. But let's see, so like LEED and FSC. So FSC is actually it's a abbreviation for Forestry Stewardship Council. What they'll do is they have a lot of rules as well that they have to follow. So I think FSC, that program in general, what they'll do is they'll make sure that the they are supposed to monitor the amount of trees that are being used throughout the project, um, and they will replant trees based on the number of trees taken for each job. And also, what they do is they'll also make sure that we are actually tracking where those trees came from too. So what part of the country, what state, what forest they actually came from. Um, you also have LEED as well. So LEED also has a lot of the same rules though too. So it's just another program that relates to the materials on the job. Moving on, below that you have the architect, the general contractor, which will both be filled out for you. These are both different per each job. We do work with a lot of the same contractors and architects, but they will vary from job to job. So I try to fill this out for you ahead of time. That way you don't have to worry about it so much. Um, but um, these are all people that we work for and work with on each project. So the contractor is who hires on site to work as the mill worker on the project. And the architect is who hires the general contractor to oversee all of the construction and installation of the work that they are designing. So that's the difference between the architect and the contractor. And then on-site is what's called a subcontractor that works under the general contractor to produce the millwork portion of the project. There are several other subcontractors that are under the contractor as well. Those include plumbing, electrical, HVAC, insulation, all sorts of other trades. And we're just pertaining to the millwork side of that. Below that is your job name. So each job is going to have a name assigned to it as well as a job number. The job number is actually a little bit lower. We'll talk about that here shortly, but those are unique to each project. In the teal, the lighter blue or cyan, whatever you want to call it, these are the pieces of information that are going to be critical for us to fill out. So because each print has a unique description or an individual description to it, what we will do is we will label this with the subject, as in we're going to go back to our drafting schedule. So we're going to go back to packet tracker and under our schedule. What I typically will do to avoid having typos is I will just go and I'll hit Control C on this cell right here, which includes the description of the item that I'm drawing as well as the locating information for that drawing. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back into AutoCAD. I'm going to double click on subject here, which will allow me to type over in this box, highlight what's in there currently, and hit Control V. Control V is going to just be paste. We'll paste that information right in. And then I'm also going to delete the locating information off of this. So I just want to see the subject of what I'm working on being laminate casework. in the text box below, this is where you're going to paste the locating information. So just the same, you're going to double click on that box. You're going to highlight the subject in this case and delete that, leaving just the level number, the room name, and the room number below. These are in two separate text boxes and because we do have formulas that help with speeding up the drafting process. We have formulas in what we call view titles. So like here where it says subject, when AutoCAD refreshes, this will automatically update here. I'll do that real quick for you. If I hit regen or refresh, this will automatically update to show laminate casework because it's referring to what is in this text box here. So that's the reason why there are two text boxes for the description. One is always going to be the subject, and the second one is always going to be the location of where that item lives in the building. Down there below this automatically will update for you. I know it's not the 29th of February in 2024 anymore, but as you go to print the drawing, this automatically updates. It is also formula based. It will go to today's date as soon as you plot it. Drawn by, this is important too. You're going to put your initials here and then drawn by. So how you do that is you just double click on these three X's, which will pop a side menu up here. You're just going to replace those X's with your initials there. Below that is the PM or the project manager's initials here. So that's already pre-filled out for you. You do not have to worry about filling that out. It's already done for you. Below that, I keep saying that, but below that you have your packet number and your sum number. Packet number and sum number come directly from your drafting schedule. Those are on the far left-hand side, so careful to make sure you grab the right one. If you have multiple things on your list, you're going to grab the packet number here. That's the farthest left column on your list. We're going to double click on this and we're going to paste that right there. Then we got to go back to our drafting schedule and we need to look at the column to the right of that. This is your sub number. So we need to see 001 in this column right here, or this piece of material. So 001, that's your sub number for that, meaning that this is a laminate cabinet drawing. All right, then following that, of course, you have your job number, which we said we'd talk about that. Each job number is unique to each project. So we probably started with job number 1 some time ago, back in the 80s, and now we're all the way at job 6,415 now. So that's the current job number that I'm looking at here anyway. And then the print reference, right now it says FX.0. This will automatically update based on what is in this tab in the bottom left-hand corner of your AutoCAD screen. So right now, that also reads FX.0. What it's going to actually need to be is we need to go back to our list to confirm. Our print reference here is L1, and the first page of every drawing is going to start with 0. So in that case, that would make this print or this tab be L1.0. Any tab after that is going to read L1.1, L1.2, L1.3, and so on. So if you need multiple pages to a drawing, you always start with 0 and you work your way up. Really important to remember to fill that out because it will actually make a difference when it comes to this formula updating. So, all right. So that's your title block. I'd say once you have that filled out, it's a good stopping place to go and save your drawing. So you're going to go and hit Save As. At the top left-hand corner of your AutoCAD screen, you can also get to this by clicking on, sorry, hiccups. You can also get to this by clicking on the AutoCAD logo in the left-hand corner and going down to Save As here. When you save your drawing, you're going to want to go and make sure that you are saving it as a .dwg. That is a drawing file. There are other variations of this too, like .dxf and .dwt, but all of your drawings should be labeled as .dwg as the file format. So please make sure that you have that right. Then where you save your file, because we're doing our save as here, we need to go to the OSW drive. So we're going to go there first, and then we're going to go into the correct project, which is Legislative Office Building 6415. And then we're going to go into drawings here. And we need to save all of our CAD files in this folder here. This is prelim project. And again, try not to be too confused because there's a prelim plots as well. Prelim plots is where all of the final drawings go once they are done being checked and corrected. Prelim project is going to be the folder where all of the CAD formatted files are going to live. So we're going to save this here. Okay, and then you can see there's already one in there right now. How we label these files, this is very, very important as well. So when you go to save your file, you want to make sure that you have this right. We always start with the print reference first. So we're going to start with L1. Okay. Following that, you're going to go space hyphen space PKT, standing for packet. And then you're going to go back to your drafting schedule, copy that packet number right off of there. All right, and then we're going to paste it in down below. And then we're going to go again, space hyphen space. And then we're going to go back to our list and we're going to copy in the description from here. Laminate casework level B1, storage room B1203. All right. And then one last thing that's worth noting at the very end of your file before you hit save, you're going to go space hyphen space and you're going to label this as V1.0, meaning this is the first version of that drawing. To kind of explain why there's a 1.0, I want to kind of go through this with you. So so you got the 1 at the front and the 0 at the end. If you have an internal correction, meaning that the drawing checker or the project manager has come to you with a correction on a drawing that you have made, that is an internal change. So any internal changes will change the number at the end. So let's say I turned in a drawing and somebody checks the drawing here, like if I went and checked my own work, I caught I had a missing elevation call or something. Well, if I have to make a change to it, I want to relabel this instead of version 1.0. I want to make sure this says version 1.1, meaning that the last number is anytime there is an internal change, it's going to change that number there, starting with 0 and then working our way up, just like the page numbers. If you have an external change, that would be any sort of a red line or a architectural revision, meaning this change is coming directly from the architect or the general contractor. That change will change the first number in this. So it would go version 1.0 because that's our first draft. If I turn this in and an architect had given me a red line on it, I would change this to version 2.0 instead. So just to give you a heads up how that works. Because it's our first draft though, we're going to go version 1.0 and we're going to save this right here in the prelim project folder. Okay. Now that we've got that filled out, that gives us a good starting place to be able to actually get into drawing these cabinets. So I think I'm going to split this video up into two. It did take a little bit longer than I thought it would take to go through the title block as well as explaining the general page notes and the hardware and finish information. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this up real quick. We will come back to a secondary video where we're going to start working in the model space and drawing the cabinets that we have in our elevation view from the architect. So for right now, We're going to break it off right here, and then we're going to come back to it in the next video, so that way we have a kind of a good timeline to follow as we go through these videos. All right, so next video we'll go into actually drawing the cabinets.